Namaste. Welcome to our August Satsang. Before we begin, first, commercial time. There is a book that I think is very good and interesting that you might like. It's Hindu America by Bhikkhu Chamanlal. Now, this is the right spelling. You can get it from Amazon, and you might be able to get it from other dealers. But it's very, very important book. Chamanlal was a very interesting person. I was fortunate enough to attend one of his lectures. He had something like 400 slides of places, mostly in South America, that showed that India basically was dominant in South America. He showed amazing things. For example, he showed sculptures of elephants. Well, there are no elephants in South America, and there never have been. There were buildings that had diagrams, like a great serpent would be running around the building in the front. And then on it were diagrams of the chakras. He showed a very interesting thing. It didn't relate to India, but he showed a jaguar statue made out of Chinese jade that was found in some deep pit in a cave somewhere in South America. So anyway, he had devoted much of his life to the evidence. And of course, what it really means is, it says Hindu America, India ruled the world at one time. This is obvious, very obvious, at least to me. But it's an interesting thing to see. So there are certain types of people who think, well, what about that alien religion? Well, no, the non-Hindu religions are alien. Sanatana Dharma was worldwide. Okay. On our YouTube channel, I've begun a series called Talks on the Bhagavad Gita. I've done over 30 so far, and I'm going through the Gita verse by verse and commenting on it, and you can see that at youtube.com/@light-of-the-spirit. And I hope to begin a series of talks on Soham Yoga based on the writings or teachings of Sri Gajanana Maharaj. Also, before beginning the questions, there's something I think you find very interesting. We've talked a little bit, I think, about Pithas. Pita means seat, or it can mean circle, though mandala is usually the word for circle. The idea is that you can establish a particular physical spot where you invoke and imbue that spot with psychic vibrations, spiritual vibrations also. That therefore a place such as a temple, for example, can become a great center of spiritual power. And your own meditation place will do the same eventually. And the adept yogi who was always doing the japa and and then regular doing meditation, you yourself will become a Pita, literally. When people are with you, they will be with God. If they're sensitive, then they'll either really like being with you or they'll want to get out of the room, because there are, of course, people who are negatively polarized. We'll mention them briefly a little after this thing I want to tell you about. There are murtis in India that are Jagrat, they show life and so on. But here's a very interesting thing that shows again there is no such thing as solid matter, and that the understanding that it's all vibrating energy, conscious energy, is a reality. All right. Shiva, most deities have what they call a vahan, a vehicle. Brahma rides on a swan, for example. Now, we find places in India where we're told Shiva did thus and so. Shiva was married to Parvati. Parvati was the daughter of the king of the Himalayan region. In fact, the Himalayas get their name from him. He was King Himalaya. The present king of Nepal is also named Himalaya. And so Shiva married his daughter Parvati. So obviously there was a time in a much, much higher yuga where, and Shankara says this, the deities just manifested in and out of the earth plane as they wished, and sometimes spent a long time here. So Shiva traveled by riding on a bull. But the form was a bull, but this was actually some great being. I've never read a definition of what kind of a being these vehicles are, but anyway, they're very great. And they're intelligent beings and highly evolved beings. And Shiva rides on the great bull called Nandi. All right. Now, and where there is an image Shiva or Shiva Linga especially, usually not far away there will be an image of Nandi looking in directly at the Shiva Linga. This is very much standard. All right, so there's a sculpture. I'll read you what is here, so I'll stop stuttering. There is a sculpture of Nandi in the Sri Yaganti Uma Maheshwara temple in Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh that grows in size every year. Now, there's a custom of doing what's called pradakshina, walking around a pita. Sometimes people do it around the whole temple, or they do it around the image itself. If, say, it's in a kind of separate shrine, they do that, always keeping it on their right side. And so, worshipers have always, throughout the centuries, they have done pradakshina, also of the Nandi. And the Nandi has grown so much that it was right straight up against a pillar, and so they had to take the pillar away so people could still do pradakshina. Now, this temple was built in the 15th century, and the image was much smaller. And now it's grown and grown and grown. And since people always like to bring in science, yes, the Archaeological Survey of India has demonstrated and confirmed that the image grows 1 inch in every 20 years. So people aren't going to have to worry that tomorrow it may be too big for the temple. But it's regular, you see. It's not haphazard. Every 20 years, larger an inch. Now, naturally, there are people who cannot stand the spiritual realities. And they have to have a rational explanation. It says in the Bible, his name should be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. There are people who hate the idea of God with us. And they do anything to say that it isn't so. So, there's the expression, eyes wide open while shut. That's these people. So they try all kinds of ridiculous rationalizations. So in the West, Christians, they're religious liberals, which means fanatics that hate the supernatural because they're materialists. And they have rational explanations for like all the miracles in the Bible. And I had a friend of mine who was a complete brainwash. She was a genius. And so she told me some of these things in all seriousness. And I said, for heaven's sakes, Pat, it takes more gullibility, more credulity to believe your so-called rational explanation than just the idea it was a miracle. After all, God's a reality. She supposedly believed in God. But apparently God doesn't do anything, at least not in their world. So anyhow, they have said there is a kind of rock that grows. But they've never produced it. And they've never had a name for it. And there is no demonstration there is such a rock. But, I don't have to believe Nandi's a real being, so there's a rock that grows. What can you do? You see, it says in the Bible, a friend is joined to his idols. Leave him alone. Well, there are idolaters whose rationality is their idol. However, beyond this, there is a temple of Hanuman in the city of Namakkal in the state of Tamil Nadu, where the image grows. It's an image of, as I say, of Hanuman. And therefore, because they know it grows, they've never constructed a cover over. Oftentimes, there's over an image, there will be like a canopy, either cloth or stone or wood, with the idea that so oftentimes birds fly in and out of temples and so on, and they don't want them to mess on the statue. So it's there. But they have never put one up because they know it's growing. Okay. Right now, it's 18 feet high. Now, because God can do anything, in Satara, in the state of Maharashtra, in Satara district of Maharashtra, in the city of, it says W-A-I, whether it's Y or Y, I'm not sure. There is a temple in which the image of Ganesha reduces in size every year by 1 inch. Yes, God with us. It's a wonderful concept, isn't it? So, having said that, we'll get to the questions. It seems that the Bhagavad Gita teaches a doctrine of the transmigration of souls, which the Buddha denied. I wonder if there's any solution to this. Well, there are two possible ones. One, the Buddha didn't deny it, and that's false. Or the Buddha didn't know and didn't understand. You got to decide which one you prefer. But I have read Buddhist texts. I have also talked with even Theravada Buddhists, not Mahayanas, who say absolutely the Buddha believed in an eternal something that went from life to life. Now, Buddha's past lives are discussed in Buddhism. So, do you think that they believe Buddha said there was no such thing as reincarnation? Unless by transmigration is thought the idea of coming up from lower to higher forms of life, which is also a truth. Well, again, where was this denied? Anyway, I've read the Shastras. I've read the Pali Sutras. And it's obvious that if you're not prejudiced and hoping fervently that it's different, Buddha was a Hindu. Buddha was a Sankhya Hindu. That is, he believed in the Sankhya philosophy, which is the basis of yoga, the basis of the yoga philosophy. And in fact, one Buddhist, he's the main translator actually of Buddhist texts, Theravada Buddhist texts in America, Bhikkhu Tanisaro, told me that some things have been written among the Theravadins about the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and their correspondence to the teachings of Buddha. So there's a solution, as I say. Either think he didn't know what he was doing or think that he didn't do it. Are there two distinct phenomena, Maya and evil, which delude the human mind? Well, I'm wondering if in your reading, because of the similarity, you have read of Maya and Mara. Mara is the principle of cosmic delusion. That's Satan in Hebrew cosmology, and therefore the early Christian cosmology. You see, Mara actually came to try to destroy, Buddha's tapasya. Maya is delusion. It is the great dream. God is dreaming it, and we are dreaming it along with him. And everything, ultimately, is a dream. Poe wrote this in a poem, is all that we see or see but a dream within a dream. See, creative people, they often understand Dharma very well, better than most philosophers do. And so, a dream is real. An illusion is real. A motion picture is real. You go to the theater, it may be about the mountains. There's no mountains in the theater, but there's the picture of it. Yogananda often used the simile of the motion picture to try to get an idea of the way things are working with us. So, unfortunately, there is also, even in Indian writings, an equation of Maya and delusion. And that's an error, because Maya is the thing, the impermanent thing that we presently see, and delusion is our response to it. In other words, we didn't understand it. It's like a child seeing a magician work and believes that that's really the way it is, that a miracle is being worked. One time, you see, sometimes people are performers. They'll want to perform in front of a great saint. I'm talking about India. with the idea that if the saint watches it, they'll somehow have their blessing and they'll be subsequently successful. And there was a magician who asked to do a performance for Mother Anandamayi. So, in the Ananda Jyoti temple in Varanasi, one evening, he gave this performance. And what was really interesting was that he was up in the front in the middle, and Ma was sitting off to the audience's right, but up in front. And his illusions were really good. They were very, very interesting. And as Ma watched, by gesture, she showed the people around her how he did it. In other words, she wasn't fooled at all. She saw through it. Well, that's what a jnani is. A jnani is somebody who sees through the illusion. But again, the illusion is real, and you have to see through it. We often forget that, you see. Of course, our concepts of reality and unreality are particularly of the highest, the highest quality. It's like someone asking, well, you see in Indian philosophy, there's a concept of unity, and yet there's a concept of vast and complex. There's a concept of vast and complex diversity, multiplicity. How do you reconcile them? If you have good sense, you don't reconcile them. You realize they're both equally true. You know? You have two eyes. Do we really have to go around with only just one eye open? No. So, as I've said, and I really mean it, you cannot comprehend Sanatana Dharma if you cannot think in two opposite directions at the same time. And frankly, only the yogi can really do it. Or maybe some very crazy people. I kind of think of myself as both. So, anyway, that's how it is. I mean, the idea that a little bug is going to explain what's going on the stage and when a play is being performed, but we do the best we can. But, or is everything just Leela, cosmic play of the Divine Mother? Please, that is a very chancy concept, the Leela business. Because you see, there are a lot of phony gurus, and they do evil. And they say it's a Leela, it's Guruji's Leela. Guruji had a lesson he was teaching somebody. That's a hellish lie. Frankly, that's a hellish lie that they do. So to say Leela, 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 regarding Anandamayi Ma, her vendors talk a lot about Leela and Ma's Leela. And yet when I read it, I think, well, what are they meaning about this? Are they meaning it didn't happen? Are they meaning that Mother was just putting us on? You follow what I mean? What do you mean, Leela? Then, of course, Mother said, I neither come nor go, which means she was not born, and she, of course, did not die. That, in a sense, she was here and she was not here. But I feel there's a subconscious desire to say it's just Leela, so I don't have to take it seriously. Ultimately, it's putting Mother right out of the sphere of reality into that of mere appearance. Why? Because then you don't have to follow what Mother said, though they hide as much as they can what Mother said. Now, if Mother said something like, oh, it is the destiny of all people to realize the self, well, that's fine. But Ma said a lot more, and Ma told people a lot more. And they didn't like what they were told, so They blocked it out of their mind. If they couldn't block it out, then it was Leela. Yeah. Ma was just pretending to tell me I should do what is right. Yes, indeed. So, fiddlesticks. If they are distinct, how are they different? Well, ultimately, they don't exist. So if you want to get right down to the rock bottom, and anyway, the distinction is only in your and my mind. So get inside your mind and find out how they're distinct. And I'm not being a smart aleck. Be a yogi. Get in your mind and find out how that is. And see, what does salt taste like? You don't know. You can't describe it. It tastes like salt. What do you mean? What does lemon juice taste like? Oh, it's sour. Well, what's sour? You don't know. So you see, we have a marvelous ability to try to turn the relative into the absolute and the absolute into the relative. So a lot of these things, the question is kind of, hey, don't you need to go do the dishes? Don't you need to mop the floor? Don't you need to go out and mow the yard? In other words, what are you doing with your life and your mind? I don't mean these are wrong questions, but we have to consider the whole thing about ourselves. All right. Are the temptations evil or are they just Maya? Well, I mean, are we Christians? Are we Muslims? Sinning against God and therefore going to get it in the neck? Well, if we are, well then go there, ask them these questions. This too is a mere appearance. The idea of tempting to evil. Look, I hate asparagus. You cannot tempt me with asparagus. I loathe it. I loathe rutabagas too. And cooked turnips. So, since there's nothing in me that is attracted to those things, you can't tempt me with it. So you see, the weakness, the propensity is in you and me, not in poor old Maya. You follow me? It's in us. There are people that, look, do you think a person who drinks alcohol doesn't know it's destroying them? Do you think a person who smokes cigarettes or cigars or whatever, that they don't know it's destroying them? Of course they do. And so do the people who smoke marijuana or use any of these recreational drugs. They know, but they prefer to destroy themselves. And we see what happy people they are, don't we? And finally, isn't everything created by the one creator? Well, again, there is creation, there's not creation. There's the appearance of creation. So isn't evil, be it in the form of Ravana or Kansa, or the temptations created by one creator, so isn't also really cosmic play? Whether you say yes or no, where are you going to go from there? What are you going to do practically? Just say, oh, I don't have to care. My mother died horribly of cancer. It was just a Leela. Or how about last week somebody cheated me out of $18,000, but it was just a Leela. Does that work? Does that work? Oh, you see, does that work for you? Yeah. We are living through a kind of training film. And in the training film, we are meant to train ourselves and our minds and our perceptions. We do it. It doesn't do it for us. Our response, our reaction to it, and you see, a dream can be controlled. In fact, I don't know if silver mind control even exists anymore. It was an excellent mode of psychic culture. But one of the things they talked about was dream control. When I was little, I learned to control certain aspects of my dreams. I saw certain hints that something was coming, and I knew how to avoid it, because sometimes I had some really pretty unpleasant nightmares. So you can control the dream. There's a recorded talk of Yogananda Ji called Awake in the Cosmic Dream. That's what a yogi really is. And yoga is the process of awakening. What we have to experience is our own reality. It doesn't matter if we think the world is unreal if we don't know how the phenomenal part of us is also unreal. And we can't touch the eternal part of us that is the only reality there is. How to picture God in our mind? Well, can you? Oh, yes, I remember I read a thing. You said, well, you can think of God as a cosmic muffin, or as mommy and daddy and so on. But I mean, you need to experience God, not picture God. All the words in the world, I can go to a great banquet and have a great vocabulary and describe to you every single thing I ate, and will you taste it? No. And you won't even know if I'm telling you the truth. So you might say, conceive of God. Well, that's a bedrock tenet of real Dharma, of Ved Dharma. You can't conceive of God. Our conceptions are just toys we play with. And sometimes they're educational toys, so we play with them, we come out with understanding some things. But that's all. That's all. You see, that we had as a fundamentalist, we sang all kinds of silly little, really pretty trashy songs. But we had a song that said, won't it be wonderful there when heaven's glory we share, blah, 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 blah. And you're supposed to say, praise the Lord. Well, let's just talk. Why would it be wonderful there? How do you know there's a there? Yes, how do you know there's a God? Yoga is the answer. And yoga is not theory, it's sadhana, it's practice. Exactly. Soham is more related to the Nirguna Brahman in our heart and in all creation. Well, Nirguna Brahman happens to be everything, and Saguna Brahman is just your and my interpretation of it. I hope that's not too big a shock. But Soham is the essence of the creation itself, and Soham is the essence of Brahman and the essence of you and I. Therefore, if you know one, you know the other. It's like saying, I like to drink apple juice, but I don't want it to get me wet. Well, the sweetness and the wetness, they're contained in the one. Saguna Nirguna is contained in the one. The idea, are we into this? Again, the old Western thing, pre-Christian thing, the Manichaean idea, matter is evil, relativity is evil, phenomena is evil. We've got to go into the absolute beyond it all. You've never been there before, so what are these words? And how do you know there is such a range of things? If you're not a yogi, you're a complete dumbbell. That's the real truth. Let's be slangy. Let's be real American about it. That is really the truth. You don't need to conceive of God. You need to be God. That's what yoga is all about. And that which truly is God obviously has to contain both. But these dualities are an illusion. And the people who talk about Nirguna and Saguna, they'll turn around and say, these differences are illusions. Don't listen to them. How to communicate with the internal guru. Soham Sanda. But you won't need to communicate with it. You will experience it, know it, and realize you are it. So there won't need to be any kind of, see, that's duality. The speaker and the spoken to, the speaker and the hearer. That's what Soham Yoga is about. It cuts through this nonsense. How to pray? Well, prayer is just talking to God. Simple as can be. Is it allowed to pray for our health, for protection? Well, why not? You're part of God. You're a wave of the ocean of God. And Ishwara does hear, Ishwara knows our every thought. So, no, it's no good to try to, first of all, you can't conceive Brahman. And how are you going to talk to Brahman? Since Brahman is absolutely non-dual, so you can't. But you can pray to Ishwara. Who's Ishwara? A manifestation of Brahman. And Ishwara is everywhere. And it's basically in your heart. So of course you can pray. People's prayers are answered all the time, for heaven's sakes. My grandmother used to pray for people who are dying and they'd be instantly well. Now her exact method of prayer, I didn't have enough sense to ask her about. But I've seen people. I have seen people who could not walk have hands placed on them. And I don't mean I saw it on TV. I was there. And I knew the people doing the hands-on and saw them get up and walk. I have seen the blind see. A friend of mine said that when she was younger, that she went to this church meeting where there are people from different places gathered together, and they carried in on a stretcher a young girl. She was, a young girl like, maybe late teens or 20 or some years old, on a stretcher, whose spine had no bone. In other words, it was just cartilage. Of course, she had a spine or she wouldn't have been alive. And there it was. I mean, it was just cartilage. It'd been that way for, say, nearly 20 years. And they wanted her prayed for, her parents. Well, the people there, this was a very interesting church, which is basically evaporated, I'm sorry to say. And they were very positive, and they were very miraculous. I saw them sort of in operation in the final stages before they turned into just another Protestant denomination. But anyway, the minister said, this is such an amazing situation and such a remarkable thing to want to have happen that we don't want anybody around that has any doubts about it, because they understood that thoughts can affect the environment. So only the ministers went in. There was this is a large room, auditorium kind of thing, and there was a door and there was another room, and so they carried the girl in, and the people doing the carrying came out. They closed the door, And the ministers prayed. And my friend said it was about 20 minutes. But suddenly there was this kind of holy bedlam inside, people shouting, thanks be to God, praise to God, etc., etc. And the door opened and the girl came walking out. I mean, why? You see, either, for example, the Gospels, you can think they're lies if you want. After all, Jesus took water, turned it into wine. Jesus walked on water. The great saints, the Christian saints do it. The Muslim saints do it. The Jewish saints do it. You understand? There's not a religion in the world whose really serious people and really developed people don't do these things. They all do them. And yes, they're daily and they're common occurrence, but we don't want it to be common occurrence because, you see, it's like I've already told you about my friend Narayan Das when he said to Ma, I want to see God. Actually, I wrote about that. Maybe I haven't told you about it. He got this feeling, I should know God. I should know God. Well, that's pretty intelligent. He was actually the manager of a couple of temples and a couple of ashrams. Wonderful man, really. But he thought, well, I believe, but I don't know. And I can't know if I don't see it. So Ma was in Delhi, but she was going somewhere else. He knew she was at the Delhi train station. So he went there, and when he came, Ma was just walking up and down the platform before the train came. This is very much her habit. So when she passed by him, he said, Ma, so she stopped. He said, I want to see God. He said, Ma actually turned her head to one side and smiled and said, are you sure you want to see God? And he said, I knew if I said yes, she'd say, take sannyas. So I put my hands together and said, no, Ma, I don't want to see God. And Ma laughed and kept on walking. Okay. About mantras. And this question speaks how mantra, Sivananda says, chant the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, to cure diseases, Hari Om to get forgiveness from all sins. I've never heard that one mantra does it. I've heard that every name of God destroys sins, but anyway. But it's not forgiveness. It's destruction of the negative karma. That's what sins really are. They're what's darkening the mind. They're not, you were bad. No, none of that. Chant the Gayatri mantra. It's the destroyer of sins. There's nothing more purifying of them. Does Soham give also all these benefits? Yes, it does. And it does it in an absolute degree. Sivananda knew what he was talking about. All these things he says, they do those things, but they do them in a limited way. But being half cured is better than no cure. But Soham does it all because it's the root mantra. All these other mantras, they're real. They have real power by sound, but sound isn't enough. Consciousness is needed. Soham is the seed of infinite consciousness. Can we continue our sadhana in a new birth on the same level as in our previous life? Well, if it was genuine sadhana, it was real, yes, you're born with what you attained before. And the karma and samskara will be there, and then you'll keep it up. If people don't keep it up, well, then it was a weak karma and a weak samskara. As I said, when I was 2 and 3 years old, I understood I needed to meditate. So went and put myself in grandfather's closet and got scared. But that samskara was there. I knew it. Just as, for example, I think I've mentioned that one time my father, when he was just maybe 5 years old, he got mad at my grandfather about something, and he ran out of the house. So one of my aunts went after him, and she found him out where there were some trees. He was sitting down, and on the ground he was talking to himself. He didn't see her coming. And he was saying, just wait till he's the little boy and I'm the daddy, then he'll find out what it's like. Well, it's not very sophisticated, but it shows my father believed in reincarnation, doesn't it? Ma used to say about these things, nothing is lost there. That is, when we go to higher levels, that positive of the thing that has helped us get there, we still have it fully. We don't expend it. We don't use it up. It's not like energy that gets used up. So, yes, if we're wise, we do. But we should try to make sure we don't come back. When the reincarnation cycle stops on Earth, I suppose we will reincarnate in higher dimensions, as long as we're not liberated and become one with Brahman. Absolutely. You can think of transmigration as you go from a low form of life to a higher form of life. That's true. And another, in the reincarnation scheme, in other words, you go to a better world than this, which shouldn't be hard. I mean, to think that there are better worlds than this. And then you go higher and higher. If into the astral world, or from the astral to the causal world. And believe me, there are like thousands of different levels and different worlds in both astral and causal. And you see, you get a little beyond this world and you don't suffer. You don't have any pain. You don't have any sorrow. You don't have any disappointments. You think of something you want, boom, it's there. You have it. There's utter fulfillment. And the beauty is incredible. I'm speaking by experience. The beauty is incredible. The earth can be really beautiful. I was awed when I was traveling in Austria. It was like the greatest artist that could ever live had just designed that country. But other places too are incredibly beautiful. But compared, they're just kind of like a mud puddle. Quite seriously. Again, I've seen it. I know. In fact, sometimes you're absolutely struck when you see some of this phenomenon. And you can stay there for millions of years. You can stay there for creation cycles. That's why hardly anybody gets there to the highest. Because you don't have to. You don't have any sickness. So only when there is within, I must know the self. Who am I? Who am I? That is not just a question, but is an impulse from deep within. That these are toys still. They're not real. I have to get beyond it all. Rare are those who do it. But everybody does it eventually. It can take us maybe a few vigintillion years, a few 100,000 creation cycles, but we'll get there. But you see, that's why now, be determined, enlightenment, I will be enlightened, I will be liberated, not I want to go to where there's no more suffering, oh, I want to go where I'll be with Krishna and we'll dance in a circle and love each other, and so none of that nonsense. only when the absolute is our goal. And it's not easy to say. I can sit here and say it, but what am I going to do the next time I pop up into one of those worlds? So, poor fool me. There is no guarantee. And especially here, there's a song that says, there's no hiding place down there. And that's true. There's no security here. And you know something? There's no hiding place up there either, speaking of these higher worlds. Okay. In the introduction to the book, The Light on the Path of Self-Realization, composed by a disciple of Gajanana Maharaj, it is stated, the Upanishads have laid down in emphatic words that the knowledge of Brahman could never be obtained without the help of a Sadguru, and many other saints stress the need for a Sadguru. Yes, but he was a Nat Yogi. And you have to know what a Nat Yogi means by it. First of all, the only Guru absolutely is God. There is no Guru but God. Sri Ramakrishna said that. In the book Soham Yoga, you can look and see it wasn't just Gajanana Maharaj. They say there's Satchidananda Guru. The ultimate Guru is God. But Sadguru can have two meanings. A true Guru, a genuine, does not lie to you. That's what you want. But the higher meaning is, see, Guru comes from the root word to lift up. It doesn't even imply teaching, in a way. But of course, knowledge lifts us up. But it means to be taken upward to higher consciousness and higher awareness. So it means true Guru. A true Guru shows you how, teaches you how to get to the Sat, the absolute reality. And you need someone to do that. Or you need a teacher, but it can be a book. I mean, we learn all kinds of things from books. I mean, it's no new idea at all. I've heard of people that had incredible skills and they learned from books. When I was at Sivananda ashram, a Hatha yogi came from European Hatha yogi. I think he was from Holland, but I'm not absolutely sure. Anyhow, he was an incredible Hatha yogi, and one night he went at this satsanga with Sivananda. He gave a demonstration of Hatha postures. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I've never seen a motion picture like it. He got into first he did just a simple asana, and then he didn't stop it and go to another. He never okay, this asana, this, no. He did one asana, and then while he was in it, he went to another asana, and went to another asana, and went to another asana. And finally, at one point, he was standing on his head in lotus posture. That is, he stood up in Shirshasana with his legs straight up. And then he brought them all down and put them together. And there he was in perfect lotus posture. And Sivananda said, this is amazing. All this you can do. And he, there on his head, said, all from your book, Swamiji. I have learned only from your books. In other words, he didn't have a beginning Hatha yoga teacher at all. He took Shivananda's books on yogasanas, which are the best on yogasanas, and he did it himself. This is what is necessary. So a book with this, he was not the greatest hatha yogi that we could know, and he learned it out of a book. In a sense, you see, I'd heard about Soham sadhana. I mean, everybody in India knows about it. That there are certain Advaitic people, and they like to meditate on non-dualism, and they observe their breath, and they say so when it comes in and when it goes out, mentally, of course. I mean, I knew that. I learned that maybe a few months after I started meditating. But I didn't understand the ins and outs of it. And that was kind of like, well, everybody knows that. It's like, everybody's got electricity in their house. Completely. So I went and frittered away decades, over half a century, in Anyoga. And then, by the infinite mercy of God, I was doing a search on the internet. I have no idea what I wanted to search for at all. And this website popped up. And up at the top, it had these two structures that looked identical. They were obviously facing each other. They looked like temples. Actually, what they were samadhi temples, but I didn't know that. But down below, there was a photograph, a black and white photograph of this man. And then, whoop, it became another photograph. And a little bit, another photograph of him, and then another one. There were 4 all in all. And then it just kept cycling over and over and over again. I thought, well, that's interesting. And there was somewhere I could click and I could see something that showed what was actually like a memorial to him. Actually, the place where he had been cremated and where there were some of his ashes. I figured that out later, but okay, fine. And then there were some things you could click and it came up graphics, and it was text of just booklets, not whole book, but in the Marathi language, the language of Maharashtra, which of course I could read it because I know the script, but I didn't know what it meant. And then, fortunately, it was noted that there was a PDF that you could get. So I didn't do it. A friend of mine used to say, delusion is strong. I didn't, but I went back a couple of times just to look at the pictures and to think, my, this is odd, but what? And then I couldn't get back to it anymore. I forgot what I had used because I didn't note the URL, you see. So I finally remember what I did, and I did what I did, and guess what? I got a Chinese language gambling site because the original yogi site has been kidnapped by some gambling syndicate. So there I was. What was I going to do? Well, fortunately, one of the sadhus knows things. And he showed me how I could go back and get some kind of archives. I don't understand any of this. I've never managed with ordinary gadgetry, so you can imagine what electronic things are to me. But so we got it back. It was like a copy of the website there. And so I went to that PDF and clicked it and downloaded it and got it and printed it out and read it. And here was Gajanana Maharaj speaking. A lot of the material in the book was worthless. Like there's something like 7 or 10 pages giving lists of a succession of famous not yogis. What are you going to do with that? So anyway, there was his teachings. There were transcriptions, and so he had two things that I've mentioned before, absolutely shocked me. Fake yoga, fake guru. Well, it was so, and all gurus are one, and all gurus should be respected by all. And after all, and it's a sadhana. And people, Gajanana Maharaj said, baloney. It is baloney. These fake gurus, these fake yogis, what? It kind of really shocked me awake. And I thought, well, what does he have to say? So I read it, simple as could be. Become aware of your breath. And breathe naturally through your nose, mouth closed. When you naturally inhale, intone so. When you exhale, mentally intone hum. That's it. That's it. So I tried it. I'd never experienced anything like it before, and all of these don't really work. Yoga. Well, by these yogas, you have said, I developed sometimes psychic powers, and I had experiences, all kind of subtle energies and pranas and all things. And I could tell you all kinds of things about Kundalini and so on. And it's all real, and it all is completely useless knowledge. Yes. I did it after 5 minutes. I said a very unsophisticated statement, but I said, oh, I love this. And I certainly knew I'd never done anything like it before. But you see, what I really meant was, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I have passed over 50 years. And it didn't matter how sincere people were that taught me this other junk, and many of them were not sincere, they were crooks. This is it. This is it. And I never doubted it. And I knew it. And it was heavenly. And so I thought, well, I'm going to keep this up. And there was something we were doing where we live in the mountains east of Albuquerque. And so in the car, we went down into the town and drove around to various places. And I sat in the back with Soham. And it was the happiest day of my life. It was such a relief. It was wonderful. And then something turned up that every week I need to go to another town, about an hour and a quarter's drive away. So for 2.5 hours, I'm in the car, going there and coming back. So I sat in the back, happy as a duck, with Soham. Then Soham started teaching me about itself. But the first thing about Soham is abhaya, fearlessness. You're not afraid anymore. You're not worried anymore. Now, your negative, evil mind could try to get it. But Soham is really strong. And then Soham started teaching me about itself. And I learned a lot that isn't putting it down anywhere, and I don't plan to put it down anywhere. Those who practice will learn. Those who don't practice won't learn. But I was never afraid. I was never doubtful. I mean, I could fail. I mean, I'm aware of that. I could drop dead and not have progressed enough and so on. Oh, yes. But none of this insecurity and unsureness. Now, anyone who wishes is perfectly willing to say, Well, anyway, you're a bit of a nut and you're no doubt self-deluded. Absolutely possible. See, people don't want you to say that. They don't want to be that honest, but they could say to me, well, do you think you're completely nuts? Well, of course I could be completely nuts. A person who doesn't have that openness of mind is never going to get anywhere. Luckily for me, let's talk about me. Egotists love to talk about themselves. I was 9 years old in the 4th grade. My desk was in the row that was closest to the door. So except for a couple of people behind me, I could see everyone in the room, the desks. So one day I was sitting there and I looked around at everybody and I thought, these people are sane. But I'm not like them. So obviously I'm not sane. I'm insane. I'm crazy. I mean it. I was very serious. And I thought, should I do something about this? In other words, should I start trying to be more like them, see things like them, act like them? And I thought and thought, and I looked at them carefully, and then I said to myself, you know, I've been talking to myself since childhood. You know, I'm having more fun than anybody in this room. So I'm going to stay crazy. I like it. So one time a man who was had deep anxiety asked me when I actually went and spoke at a theosophical study group where he said, would you ever worry that you just might be out of your mind? I said, no, I never worry. I am out of my mind. I figured that out. I'm completely crazy. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. And there it is. I'm not telling you this for effect and for fun. It's the way it is. All right. Now, you've been giving me a lot of time. Maybe we'll divide this in when it gets posted. All right. So, the Sadguru tells you how to get to the Sat. Here it is. This is a process of Soham. If they don't tell you Soham, they're not a Sadguru. They may be sincere. They may be good people. They may be holy people. And they may have great intuition and psychic powers, but the one thing needful, they don't have. Okay. Are we ever really free of karma? Well, you know what? We don't have any right now. In the dream, we have karma, you see. Krishna says this in the Gita. You dream, you act. And you dream, you have reaction from the act. But in reality, none of it. You see? So the dream part of us has karma. Oh boy, a lot, a few mountains of it. But the real part of us has none. So we don't have to fulfill our karmas. We don't have to dissolve our karmas in a sense of consciously or burn them up and roast the seeds of karma. All this talk that the phony yogis put out. You just need to get real. And that's Soham. Okay? All right, fine. Then finally, how do you define the second coming? I don't, because there isn't any such thing. That's just something the Christians have figured up to scare people. The Lord is coming very soon. I remember, in fact, one time I was actually going to go to speak at a group where, the people there, were students of Indian religion, and I think everybody meditated by some system and so on. And I was thinking, I thought, I wonder what they would do when it's time for me to speak to them, I'd look very, very serious and say, there's something I really think I need to say to you. The Lord is coming very soon. And I just started laughing. I couldn't stop it because what a stupid idea and what a stupid thing. So there ain't no such, there ain't no such creature. So there's no need to define it. It's an illusion. It's a lie. If somebody tells me a lie, I can't prove it's true because it isn't. And actually, how do I prove it's a lie? Because everything goes by experience. So, no, to be really slangy about it, no sweat, no worry. The real advent has already happened. You are here. Just get inside and experience it. You just experience it. You don't have to make it happen, see? Oh, yes, you meditate so many and you'll get so much evolution, all this kind of nonsense, and you'll, like moment by moment, it'll creep up more, 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 because the more you practice, the higher you've gotten. That's the way phony yoga talks. You can tell. In fact, there are 2 books just, I think, last week or so, we were looking at. I was looking at some of the things. And both were by supposed great yogis, great masters even. And both of which I used to think the teachings were marvelous. And I said, all you've got to do is read these, just a page or 2 of these people. And they're not yogis at all. They don't know real yoga at all. They know all kinds of gymnastics, psychic and physical. But they don't know yoga. Their very words show, the way they speak about it, the very way that I have about the idea of growth, evolution, spiritual progress, shows they don't have a clue. Yep, that is the truth. And anyone who wishes can put it all down to ego on my part. But I know what I know. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.